Not all of us have the ability to make dramatic adjustments in our lives, but do we need to? A 1% change compounds. So what would happen if I did this every single day for 30 days? Also, how would I do that? Is it sustainable, and does it result in a noticeable difference? About a month and a half ago, I released the first part of this video, where I go through the process of choosing little behaviors to add into my day. This is the second part, looking at the process throughout that month in real time, what I learned, and hopefully making mistakes so that you don't have to. For those of you who haven't seen the first video, I made this list of behaviors. Each one has the amount of time I will try to do it each day. When I made this list of behaviors, I was thinking, this isn't gonna be that bad, right? It's just a few minutes, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, no big deal. Well, I'm a few days in and I'm realizing just how resistant to change I am. Also, it's really hard to be intentional. After all, our lives are busy. I have events to host, relationships to invest in, work to do, and some of you are like, yeah, you think you're busy now? Wait till you have kids. I'm tracking my progress at the end of each day so I can see how the day went, and then also so I can review it at the end of the week to see what needs work. This first week went about as expected. I found most of these decently easy to do except for studying Spanish and journaling. I reviewed my progress at the end of the first week and worked on a different approach to improve my consistency. Here's the biggest lesson from week 2. I'm noticing that when I go to start something that I really don't want to do, like journaling, it seems big and boring and I just avoid it like the bubonic plague. I don't want to do it. But then what happens is after a few minutes, I realize that it's not that bad and I sometimes end up not wanting to stop. The important takeaway here is a boring task is often only boring to start. That's why this list of behaviors is so incredibly challenging to do, because each behavior is so short that it often doesn't give enough time to get out of that boring phase, which is usually 3 to 5 minutes. This is really important to realize. When I started this challenge, I figured that all I had to do to break a task down and make it easier was just shorten the amount of time I was going to do it. For example, journal for 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes, that makes it easy, right? But it turns out that shortening how long you do something, the duration of something, doesn't automatically make it easier to start. The way you make it easier to start is shortening the startup process, not the total duration of how long you're going to do that thing. So another way of saying this is journaling for 25 minutes is not 5 times harder than journaling for 5 minutes, right? Kind of makes sense. It's not exponential. It's that first initial hump that is challenging. And then from there, it gets a lot easier. So I would be much better off in leaving a longer duration if I want, so 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, etc., but then shortening how much time it takes to start that task. For this coming week, that's exactly what I'm doing with journaling. And the way I'm doing that is I'm saying all I have to do for journaling is write a predetermined prompt. And all I have to do is write that. That's the starting process. The ability to do boring tasks for long stretches of time is the key to success. Obviously, in my case, I'm trying to make these enjoyable, but listening to music while studying only works for so long. Something remarkable just happened. I kept changing my strategy until I found 2 specifically that allowed me to do these behaviors, which we'll talk about later. But it's more than that. I can feel something changing. Like the resistance to these behaviors is dropping. In week 1, just the thought of I have to journal yet today, I could feel the resistance like rising inside of me. Like I didn't want to do it. I found myself dreading having to do that. But now at the end of week 3, it's just not really there. So the thought of journaling, studying Spanish, reading, whatever the case may be, it doesn't seem like a big deal anymore, which is just a stark contrast from where I was. I'm really curious if next week is going to reveal anything else, because I've had some really big breakthroughs in this week alone.
This month of 1% improvement has been very interesting.
When I started this a month ago, I had several questions I wanted answered. The main one being, is this a sustainable way to grow even in normal, everyday, busy life? And I think I've reached a conclusion. Well, 3 conclusions, actually. But before I tell you what those are, I want to show you something. If that doesn't give you a headache, I don't know what will. Let's break this down a bit. This is my progress from day 1 to day 30. The biggest struggle buses here were Spanish study and journaling. But as you can see, around week 3, they started to change. This is when I discovered the first of my 3 conclusions. Number 1, shorten the time it takes to start. Often the hardest part of any behavioral change is the first 5 minutes. So boiling that down so that you can start within a minute or less is really hard. Whether or not this exercise is sustainable largely comes down to this. Number 2, change doesn't happen in a vacuum. This is what I realized in week 1. At first, I was just trying to do these behaviors on my list whenever I could. What I learned later is behavioral change is like building Legos. If you want to add a Lego, it needs to be connected to other Legos for it to be strong. It needs to be incorporated. So the more you cross over and interlink the Legos or behaviors, the harder it is for them to become dislodged. That's why often bad habits are incredibly resilient, because they are built into the integrity of so many other little things that to remove that requires a lot of reconstruction of the areas that little single brick or habit or whatever it is, behavior, affects. Number 3, little actions plus time rewire the brain. I've felt my brain change more from doing these little behaviors for a long period of time than I did from doing big dramatic changes, like when I started working out or taking cold showers or waking up early or whatever the case may be. In week 4, I realized what doing these little behaviors is quite literally doing to the brain, and how to take advantage of that. The 1% improvement is like a little bonus compared to the ability to rewire your brain. I've decided to dedicate a whole video to the topic, which I will be releasing very shortly. As for the questions at the beginning, here are some of my thoughts. So first of all, yes, I've noticed that these actions, like just little actions over long periods of time, do create noticeable difference. The next part of that is that sustainable, right? So for me, what I did wasn't very sustainable. I think I bit off a little bit more than I could chew. Even with learning how to shorten the starting process, it was still a lot. For the next month, I'm doing less daily behaviors. I think that'll just fit easier into my day. So if you find yourself taking care of children, starting a nonprofit, or just incredibly strapped for time, but you do want to keep growing and improving, I think this would be a good option for you. So pick 2 or 3 behaviors and do them daily for a month, track your progress, and just see what happens. Also, if you read my newsletter, you got all of this information and so much more about a month ago, so my apologies for repeating myself. I'll see you in this video next, where I talk about how to rewire your brain in a month.